All right, we're here.
Okay. All right. Hello. We are 1 year away from the beginning of ABC, which is an eFed on Xbox, and we will explain what that is shortly. But my name is Tsunami. I am here with three friends. I am here with Equal Scorpion, T Drivers, and Caninius, all of whom I have played video games with over the internet for a very long time. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a video series just kind of explaining um, what is happening and kind of familiarizing everyone with the lore of ABC. So that way, once it actually starts up, it's not very confusing. But we've been kind of quietly doing these leagues on Xbox, on WWE games for what, like 8, maybe 10 years now almost. And yeah, so we're gonna explain things, and we're gonna start with XWE, kind of what really brought everyone together. We kind of knew each other a little bit beforehand, but this is XWE is where everyone kind of fell into. So I'm gonna let K9 take it away and kind of explain what eFeds are and what they mean to us.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Caninius. Me and Tsunami and Equal will be staples of this. T drivers will be hopping in and out. We'll have other people hopping in and out. Um, so eFeds. eFeds are essentially wrestling companies, but they are obviously nonprofit and they are run on Xbox servers or PlayStation servers. I don't know of any eFeds that are on PC, but I could be wrong. These eFeds are not for, I mean, there is a select few, I want to say one or two off the top of my head that actually have social media traction, but for the most part, they're either competitive leagues, i.e., who can play the best and win the matches, or they're sim leagues, which are who can put on the best match and who can tell the best story. And those are two main divisions of eFeds that happen within the WWE 2K games. These are online leagues, and I mean, for me, I've been doing eFed since I was 13. That's a long time, and it's been going on off and on every weekend. And that is a mighty long time to be doing this. And honestly, it's just a way to be creative. It's a way to know, like, you want to tell a story. You can make a character, you can make him be whatever you want, and you can just tell this story. It's like the best comparison I can make for it is D&D. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, but within the scheme of pro wrestling. And that's about where we are with this.
We're gonna start with XWE, which it stands for Xbox Wrestling Entertainment, and Equal and T Drivers really were kind of the head honchos when it came to that. They kind of ran the roost, and yeah, I'm gonna let Equal kind of just talk about what XW was and the inception of it, because we got to start somewhere, and he knows better than anybody how it kind of started and how he came to be the owner of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello everybody. I'm Equal Scorpion One, now known as Equal Echidna, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm Equal Scorpion One. So, basically, the way XWE started out is I actually didn't have anything to do with running it when it first started out. That was back in November 2012. This guy named Sports Superstar, and it was this purely competitive league, which basically K9 kind of told you about the main divisions for being competitive in Sim. But the best way to look at it is that if you were going to XWE, if you were going to any competitive wrestling league on the WWE series, WWE 2K as it is now, you would essentially be loading into the match with your opponent on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock. You'd be playing your theme song, which is probably by Breaking Benjamin or Slipknot or 3 Days Grace or one of those bands. You would get to the ring, and then you would do everything in your power to make sure that the other opponent was down for a count of three. You would use every running move that you've got, which is only two of them. You would hit grapples and stall them or hit finishers, but basically you would try to cut some corners and you would try to win the match against your opponent, or you would just reverse until they gave up and let you win. That's how it was on WWE 13, anyways, when I started, because the pin bar didn't exist and people wouldn't just lose. Anyways, this being said, XWE had some things that most other competitive leagues didn't have, or any other leagues to begin with, even the sim ones. What they had is they had commentary for every match. They were recording some of their matches and putting them on YouTube. And occasionally, you would even get a guy cut a promo. Now, this guy was usually alpha, but we won't talk about that today. Sometime down the line, I came to be in control of XWE, and I immediately had T-drivers helping me out. And once we took over, we started doing some things. We designed rules that wouldn't essentially stop the matches from being competitive. Like, the outcomes were still out of our control. But
at that time, that would have been like really far-fetched to go from what it was right into sim. I mean, we didn't.
Yeah.
No one really knew what sim was at that time, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like, me and T-Jars had tried to do some sim, but T-Jars, if you're there, I don't know if you remember about Hollywood Chen and that Elimination Chamber match where we tried to do some sim, and it was rough. But
Oh, hell yeah.
what we tried to do as a bit of a compromise to that is we tried to say, okay, we're going to be competitive, but we're going to make some rules where the matches at least look entertaining if you're watching them. So we weren't letting people run as much. We weren't letting people, stall. And the big thing is we weren't letting people have irreversible moves. Not even talking about having irreversible moves as finishers, which was a bit of a problem back in the day. But basically, yeah, we created those rules. We started cutting more promos. We started trying to put more storylines together. We practiced sim as we were doing this and slowly began to introduce it. With the first ever sim match, widely recognized at least, being Warren Marshall versus Alexander at Final Destination 2, which was our equivalent of WrestleMania. Guys, you're here. Do you have any thoughts about that match?
Yeah. I mean, it was. If you if you go back and watch that match, I mean, when it comes to like sim wrestling and like critiquing it, it was it was terrible. It was like any backyard wrestling match you would watch where like they would fuck something up and then they would like retry it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And
But it was a
yeah,
sim match.
there was no psychology, but I will say that was at the time that was like really big, if I remember correctly, that match.
Yeah.
Well,
And off
you
that success,
you got to think, Final Destination 2, you also had things like AK-47 getting double teamed by an old man and a guy with no face climbing out of a steel cage. So
yes, we did, and that man went on to have a successful championship reign that lasted multiple years.
Right,
and
but
he is currently sitting in my living room.
my point here being, like, a sim match at that point in our our branch, our vein of call wrestling was uncharted territory, like, very much.
Yeah.
So.
For anyone confused, by the way, I do want to make this point. When we say sim, that's like what you think of actual wrestling as. So like everybody knows it's predetermined, it's scripted, and it's for entertainment purposes. That's what sim was. And before that, before any of that happened in XW, it was all competitive. It was literally just merciless trying to win. No matches looked good or were entertaining. I mean, they were entertaining to watch at points, but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely some things that you could laugh at, and there were some things that happened that were pretty funny. But at the end of the day, as far as like a modern wrestling product, it was not something I would go back and watch, put it that way. But anyway, there were still, as soon as we had that match, that was oh man, that was would have been September or late August of 2014 would be that Warren Marshall and Alexander match. And right as soon as that match ended, we were like, okay, everybody needs to start learning sim now. Like, I was starting to practice my sim. Markster was starting to practice his sim. I mean, we were all, even Toxic was starting to practice his sim. We were really getting it in gear. And at this point, when we thought that we could do some sim matches and put on a show that people would actually like, besides just ourselves, we tried to kind of bring XWE into the mainstream a little bit. The first time we did this was when we pre-recorded the entire Jackpot 2014 pay-per-view. So I think this would have been just a little bit after Final Destination 2, I think, because I think it got rescheduled. Or maybe it's 2015. It might have been 2015, actually, that we tried to pre-record the whole thing. But the files got lost, and I don't know if T-Jars is here to shed any more light on that, but
My brother deleted it for no reason.
Yeah. his brother deleted it, and so the show was lost, and it was whatever. That kind of pissed us off, but we didn't stop there. Not too long after that, we got partnered with this company called Zomspawn. So how this happened was, I guess the guy that runs the Zomspawn channel just happened to be watching one of our XWE shows, I think, and they stayed for the whole thing. They came in at like the second or third match, and they stayed the whole night. Which I don't think we've talked about how long these shows usually go, but it's a good couple hours to get through a show.
It is more than a couple hours. These XWE shows would go. They would start at approximately 7 p.m. Eastern and go anywhere from 7 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Eastern, which was a rarity, to about 2:30 or 3 a.m. Eastern. So these were long shows.
Yep. Of course, the main event would often start, as K9 used to say, at 2:05 live in the morning. But anyway, this guy that runs the Zomspawn account, he was watching our things and he said he's impressed with what he saw. He's really been looking for. He has these completely simulated EFEDs, which is, well, universe modes basically, which is an entirely different thing. If you're aware of what universe mode is on WWE 2K, it's basically where you can just get all your cause into a custom arena and make a completely unique show and story, but it would all be computer generated. Like, you could play as one player versus the computer, but for the most part, you'd let the two computers fight it out, and you'd book from based on how the results go. So he had a bunch of those on his Zomspawn Twitch channel that would do wrestling shows like and other video games like every day. But he didn't have anything where it was player versus player, where his viewers could actually join and actually wrestle if they had an Xbox 360. So we partnered with them, and we got some benefits out of it. We got some people there. We got some views. They were partnered with Machinima, technically, so we got their little intro thing to put at the start of our streams. But eventually, this kind of phased out a little bit because we started losing viewers, actually, when we moved from our channel to theirs. And the people that they brought in didn't know how to play the game. T-Jars, I don't know if you remember a guy that had a tag team match with you that didn't know what team he was on of the tag team match or how to get tagged in. But
I don't remember that, actually.
That guy came from Zomspawn, like, as a recruit. So, yeah, like, after that, and then I think it finally came to a head when he wasn't even chopping up the videos anymore. And what I mean by that is they had a YouTube account and get all the matches from our stream, because I just streamed the whole show from my Roxio. I never turned the stream off on Xbox 360. I would have to go into every match. And then later, either me or him would have to go back and get all those matches out and put them onto YouTube. He started wanting me to do that, and I'm like, I'm taking like 3 AP classes that semester.
But essentially,
I'm like, I don't have time to go
what
back.
Zomspawn meant to XWE and to us as a whole was like the first time we were getting like an audience.
Yeah, exactly. Because not long after that, we got 31 people to watch Proving Grounds on our Twitch channel and stay for a good part of that show. That was some crazy things went down on that show, including Elliot Maverick winning a heavyweight title. But I will move on. I mean, we kind of decided, listen, the capture cards are really expensive and they don't even always work half the time. Uploading to YouTube and uploading to Twitch, it's weird because of the audio, because the theme songs, our videos got blocked a lot. And we just realized at the end of the day that, we could try to be like FAM or some of these other sim leagues that get, thousands of viewers. But then we also realized, hey, FAM is lucky to do 2 shows a year. We do 2 shows a week sometimes. So we wanted that 12 pay-per-view schedule. We wanted to be able to not just be wrestlers, but be wrestlers almost full time. Yeah, I mean, besides house shows, we were working a WWE schedule almost, it seemed like sometimes. So, and we liked that at the time. And that went on for a good year. So that went on until about early 2018. I want to say the end of February, or maybe right at the beginning of March of 2018. And then at that point, it just kind of died out. Me and Markster were fully in college at this point, and I think T Drivers might have started, but I can't remember.
T Drivers. Yeah, I think T. I mean, you can shed light on this because I don't know every detail about your life, but I do believe
Did you start in March of 2018, T Drivers? Were you in college at that point?
He muted his mic.
All right.
Fucking, I think so.
Well, there we go. He thinks he was. So we've got a lot of major players in college at this point, and in a lot of cases, not at their parents' house and not with their Xboxes. So then it became a thing about, okay, well, I could go get my Xbox back, but that would take a while. And eventually we just decided, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this league anymore because it's a lot to keep up with. So XWE kind of fizzled out, and then Toxic not that long ago after that. This would have been about like May of 2018. He started MCW, and I'm gonna be honest, I have pretty fond memories of MCW. To me, it felt more like you were wrestling at a house show in that there wasn't a ton of build up to the cards, and sometimes there wasn't even like a full match card announced ahead of time. It was the kind of thing where you'd show up to a weekly show, and it would be like, okay, we've got a main event, and we've got a semi-main event. Now, what's the undercard? And we would all kind of sit there until we came up with some matches for the undercard. We'd do them, they'd be really fun. And then we get to the important matches, and the pay-per-views were kind of the same way, except we had a main event, we had a world title match, and some other title matches, and then we still had a bit of an undercard to work with. So I liked MCW, but it didn't play out. It didn't really feel like it had too much of a vision. I don't know. What did you guys remember about MCW? What did you think about it?
I thought MCW was a superb idea, and it really was like a step in the right direction after XWE. But I know Toxic was working at that point, and I know
Yeah.
when I started ESE, which will be in a later episode, I was also working at that point. But like part of that was why he couldn't make the match cards, and like if MCW had been more clearly organized, and I know kind of the beauty of it was that it wasn't, but if it had
Yeah.
been more clearly organized, I feel like it would have gone longer. But I think it fit the niche role that it was there for.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically there for the people that, were with their Xboxes at the time or wanted to go back or whatever it is. They could sit down, they could work a match. You know what I mean? They could get that, keep sharp and keep that thing going. And I think it's a lot of the reason why ESE was as good as it was we weren't out of practice for so long. But that's my kind of thing. And then that fizzled out a little bit because, as you said, Toxic had a job, and running a league is a hell of a lot to keep up with because the shows certainly weren't any shorter. Let me tell you that. And then Gothic and Burning decided to form APW, and I don't even remember what it stands for. But if someone else wants to take over here, because APW didn't even last very long, and to be honest, I don't want to talk about why. But
I mean, APW, I feel like, and this is not a diss on Gothic or Burning at all. This is like, I respect them, but like I feel like APW was kind of a step backwards, not in the sense that it was bad, but in the sense that they were kind of clinging on to what XWE was instead of trying to move past that. Because I feel like they weren't personally finished with XWE, and they wanted XWE, but they weren't going to name it XWE, so they made APW, and that only lasted for 2 months. But that did spawn a couple of great superstars, which we will be getting to later on, which we will make notes on APW on also. Other than that, I mean, do you want to talk about how XW had the run in ESE, or do you want to save that for the ESE one?
We could save that for the ESE one, honestly. I'm thinking like it was important, but I think it won't really make sense until the context comes in of ESE being a thing.
All right. Well, that's basically an overview of XWE history.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys talking and getting all that out, and I hope that this has been educational in some way for anyone who doesn't know what XWE was or who was part of it and didn't understand completely the lore behind it. And we'll see you in the next one. Later.
See ya.